I thought that this was an absolute atrocity. This
Oh,
this episode was junk. It was horrible. I absolutely 100% how I hated how it ended.
it's hard. It almost hurts me to say it because I had so many different hopes for it, but I look back and say, you know what? We've seen a lot worse come out of the MCU.
Yeah, I don't think that
Because
this is gonna happen. I don't think there's gonna be a season 3 of Loki. I think this is very much the end of Loki.
And, like in my notes, I can't tell you how many times I wrote "duh" in capital letters with exclamation points because they're like, oh yeah, well, the loom expands, but it's not enough. Duh.
In one way, he went off and studied a whole bunch of quantum mechanics for centuries. So he is now smarter than Tony Stark.
Loki's like, we gotta do it faster. So how many times did he try to do it faster? And it got to the point where not only was it as soon as Timely stepped out, it was when he was still inside that he started turning the spaghetti.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Black and White Reviews. I'm Lee.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm Will.
So I tried doing a ChatGPT thing, but I had like a 22-hour work shift, and I tried it once. It looked like garbage, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do this later, and then got super busy, and yeah, I spent all day yesterday taking multiple naps just to catch up for my lack of sleep, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to do my own thing.
That's
So
fine.
here we are. Yeah, totally fine, because
Here we are.
to bed. So,
Here we are.
here we are.
Season 2, episode
Season
6
2,
of
episode
Loki.
6.
Did you like it?
So I'm going to say this. The episode's called Glorious Purpose.
Yes, it is.
Sounds familiar.
Yes, it does.
Very Ouroboros of them to start the series with an episode called Glorious Purpose and end the series on an episode called Glorious Purpose.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Yes.
So that's all I'm going to say about that. But what do you guys think? Chuck, what were your thoughts on this being what seems like the series finale of Loki?
I thought that this was an absolute atrocity.
Oh,
This episode was junk. It was horrible. I absolutely 100% how I hated how it ended. I hated the entire premise of what happened in this episode, and it completely 100% ruined the entire storyline of Loki for me. They ruined Loki from the beginning till now for me with this one episode. I hated it. 100% despised the entire thing.
well, that's less than 5 minutes. But Will, how do you feel?
I'm 100% in agreement with Chuck. I thought this was horrible.
Okay.
And it's
It
not
was hot
even
garbage.
it's not even so much that they completely changed Loki's character. We'll get into it a lot more later, but they changed almost every character. Well, at least the main ones. They did a really good job at like undoing a lot of the character development that we've seen like progress over the past couple of seasons in one episode. It blows my mind. And I know we're doing like a non-spoilerific thing like for the first couple of minutes here, but I do want to say that this is an episode that's about 45 minutes long. 10 minutes of that is a whole lot of credits, right? In a 45-minute episode, there are 2 montage scenes. I don't understand like the rationale behind that decision. It makes almost no sense. And one of them could have easily been replaced with like an explanation for another thing that happens here. It just, I don't understand what's happening.
It baffles
The way that the episode opens was everything that I've been afraid of, that I've been complaining about since we found out what Loki's abilities would be, and they just went ahead and they did it, and I have a really big problem with that. I cannot stand it. I cannot stand it, and especially like the way things end leaves so much on the table and so much to be desired. And Lee, you're absolutely right. It looks like this is very much the finale of the show, but they left a couple of things open-ended, and it's just really curious, like, well, where are they gonna go next?
Open-ended.
Yeah.
I didn't see it as open-ended at all. I thought that they closed the book on 2 characters primarily. They're done.
Yeah, but then they open up another book.
Oh, you talk about Obi.
No, we'll get there.
Not literally open up another book.
Well, he did
Well, he
too.
does. He does.
He
Yeah, I
absolutely
know. That's what I'm
opens up
saying.
a book.
Literally. Yeah.
Sure, sure, but
Mhm.
yeah, overall, those are my thoughts. This was
They said they do. Loki does say a line in here that actually contradicts what actually happens in the I think it's the 1893 episode. He actually says a line that contradicts what actually happens in the episode, and then how this ends. It actually wrote off two characters,
Oh yeah.
Do you
two
remember?
main characters. It wrote them both off. They're both done.
Do you remember? Do you remember like one of the main points of contention that you and I had against each other when we were doing Looper, and that's the whole concept of memory,
Yeah.
timey wimey
Yeah.
BS memory stuff that's going
yeah, yeah.
on. This did
Yeah.
that
It
in
did, but
one episode.
Yep.
yeah.
I
Hated it.
it's stupid the way that it was done here. I still love Looper and I still super disagree with you. However, they did that here and it didn't work. It did not work
Well,
at
in
all for what they were trying to go for. But those
I
are
will
my
say
those
this.
are just my opening yeah.
Right. I will say this with Looper. What they did do is they had a backstory. They had, they had enough stuff going on that fit into one style of time travel.
Sure.
With this, they they don't know. They don't know. I, for the first time out of all of us, was like, I don't know. Phone call, I guess.
Sure.
I, for the first time out of all of us, was like, yeah, I was loving this episode, this season. And
Hmm.
Disney Plus went ahead and did it again. They completely 100% wrote off two different characters. Hopefully, something that we talked about, which we'll get in more to this episode in a few, but hopefully, something that we talked about last week will become what happens moving forward. Because Loki does a thing that you're like, huh?
There's
What?
a lot of things
What?
that happen that huh?
Yeah, but the one primary thing at the end, you're like, what? I was like,
Oh
nope.
no.
I totally noped out. I was like, I'm done. Like, if they make a season 3, I probably won't watch it.
Yeah, I don't think
Because
that this is gonna happen. I don't think there's gonna be a season 3 of Loki. I think this is very much the end of Loki
Loki.
for the time being. Until
I think
something.
it's just
I
the
mean,
end. I think it's just the end of Loki.
could be.
Without getting into depth. It's just the end of what's he gonna do?
All right. Well, Lee, you're back just in time. What are your
What are your
thoughts?
thoughts?
So I got home after my super long shift. No. This was the night before. I got back home and I knew I had a really big long shift coming up, and I'm like, okay, I'm home. It's like 9:30 at night. I really should go to bed. And I walk in the house and my wife goes, no. I'm like, what? She's like, you can't come in here, because she was 5 minutes into the episode.
Wow.
I'm like, okay. She's like,
She couldn't start it over?
she did. That's
Oh.
what she said. But she was like, she knew that I wanted to go right to bed, but she also knew that it was like super tempting that she's watching it and like I have to go to bed. So I came in and she's like, I'll restart it. I'm only like a couple minutes in. I'm like, fine. I really wanted to go to sleep, so I knew how tough the next day was going to be. So sat down, I watched it with her, and as we're watching it, I'm like making faces and responding to things. She goes, "It's so much more fun watching this with you. I can't watch this without you." And I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "That's nice. I appreciate that." I didn't fall asleep.
Oh.
I stayed wide awake. I fell asleep with the last one when everybody, or whichever one was, they were spaghettifying, like everybody was spaghettiing. I
Yeah.
passed out with record stores. I was just wiped. But this time I was like wired. Let's do this. I was just, I don't know. It was just perfect timing. So I watched it and I felt so unsettled by the end. And I'm like, I really liked what they were doing with his character in the very beginning of this season. And I liked it when he was becoming like an actual friend to Mobius. Like,
Yes.
hey, when he's just like, hey, you all right? Like, do you want to talk about this? It seems like you lost your cool back there. And I'm like, wow, very different take on this character. Like, he's really starting to evolve. Which, I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of somebody who enjoyed this season, you say, oh yeah, well, it all matched up. It all added up. It's good. But I was really hoping they would just go a different direction with it than what they did.
Yeah, but they made him the most powerful being in the entire universe.
Shh, no spoilers.
It's not a spoiler.
But I will say, sitting on it for the past couple days, rewatching it 5 minutes before I started talking to Will today.
You liked it.
I don't love it, but I can appreciate what they did. It's hard. It almost hurts me to say it because I had so many different hopes for it, but I look back and say, you know what? We've seen a lot worse come out of the MCU.
No,
But-
we haven't.
Yes, we
This
have.
was bad.
We have.
We have, but
We
this was
absolutely have.
this was horrible junk
But
garbage.
the thing is, they made him such a nice guy by the end. Where else were they gonna go with it? How long are you gonna watch this nice guy, going off on these adventures? I don't know. Would I have loved a third season for him to finally get to a place like this?
Yeah, but
Absolutely. I feel
while-
like they jumped the gun. 6 episodes.
while
it's a
you
slap
were
in the face to
while
all
you
of
left
us.
the room on the phone call, I was saying to Will, I said that they effectively wrote off two characters, two
Yeah.
main
Yeah,
characters.
I heard you say that. Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
In this.
Who? Well, we'll talk
Who-
later.
Who? Who do you, the two? It just gets to the point where you're like, what are we gonna do with this character? And nothing. We're gonna do nothing. We're gonna do nothing with this character. Zero. Nothing, because now he can't move. He is there forever. He can't move.
Okay.
For a guy who didn't want a throne, let me tell you, he can't move forever.
Well,
Yeah.
Nope. There is no well.
Well,
If he moves, everything falls apart.
Yeah, if he moves.
yes.
Right.
Right, if he moves.
If he
She, on the other
moves.
hand,
Different story.
yeah.
Loki's
There's-
other
So you thi-
variants, different
I'm
story.
just saying.
I hate that.
Yeah, so do
Romero.
I.
I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that.
I do too. But I mean, overall, I enjoyed this show. I know that they ended it the way they did, and it's like, oh, that's such a sour taste. But everything leading up to it was exciting still. And if you look at the character arc, I think the biggest issue is it's not what we wanted to see. Not was it good? It's did we want to see him end here?
So I get what you're saying, but when you guys were kids, did you guys ever get did you ever collect baseball cards?
Nah.
I did.
You did.
For a little while.
Did you ever get the cards that had the stick of gum that was inside the pack?
We understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So watching this series of Loki was like buying a stick of that pack of 8 baseball cards, 10 baseball cards with a stick of gum inside.
Mhm.
You are super excited when you got it, and you're
Mhm.
like, "This is fantastic! I can't wait to get that." You open up the pack,
Mm-hmm.
you go through, in this case, the first 5 episodes. You go through all the baseball cards, and you're like, "Oh, I got one really cool card," and the others are like, "Eh."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Now I get to enjoy the gum." And every single time you got that stick of gum, it didn't just break apart. It was brittle in your hand because it was so stale. It was
Yeah.
so old.
Yeah.
You put it, and you're 8, so you don't care. So you
Uh-huh.
pop it into your mouth anyways, and you start chewing it. It chips a few teeth, and you're like, "I thought I was gonna like this."
It was brittle. How's it chip your teeth?
Because it's hard. The gum was super hard.
Yeah.
So you sat there and you chewed it, and you're like, "I was going to enjoy this, but I really don't now." And now and then the flavor will last 10 seconds, and you spit it out.
Mm-hmm.
The last episode of this was like chewing that gum, and the first 5 episodes was like opening that pack and going, and then that final event. All I remember now from those days wasn't the cards.
It was
I don't
the
remember
gum.
which card I got. It was
Right.
the gum.
Right.
10 years from now, all I'm going to remember about this season is this finale, and it ruined everything prior to. It ruined every
No,
single thing
I
prior
get
to.
that. We've talked about things where my biggest issue was it's the ending. You know, I've said this about so many things, even music. I remember when so we were recording a song, and I had my drummer lay down vocals, not a singer. You know, but he had the lyrics that he wrote to add to this. I'm like, dude, you sing it. And I said, I'm like, and he's singing it, and he's like missing every note, and it's just like, I'm like, dude, start and end on the right notes, and if everything in the middle is garbage, everybody who's listening will kind of forget it. They're like, oh, at least it ended okay, you know, like, and it's easy to forget, you know, the middle if it begins and ends well, you know. First bite of a sandwich, amazing. The middle of it, oh, I ate an olive, but the ending, oh, it was so good. So I've always focused on that. If you have a bad ending, it ruins the entire sandwich.
Mhm.
So I know I just gave you like 4 different metaphors for the same thing, but I get that. I'm not trying to argue with you guys, and I'm not trying to defend this. It's just
Go for it if you want to.
no, I'm not going to. I just feel like I'm losing my excitement for this. Everybody has superhero fatigue. Everybody does. Everybody's done. Everybody's tired. They just had their screening of the first screening of Captain America: Brave New World, and it was like bad. So now they're not releasing it this upcoming summer, but like the following February because they're
Whoa.
doing massive reshoots.
Huh.
So it's like I hope that means they're recognizing that they've been putting out crap lately, and they're trying to fix that. I mean, Guardians 3 was really good. It fit with the other 2 Guardians movies, and it was great. But the thing is, I hope that they're getting to the point of saying we can't just put crap out. We
Right.
can't just put out movies that leave a bad taste in people's mouths. But I'm also not going into it with super high hopes anymore.
Right. Speaking of reshoots, Disney just came out and they were supposed to release Snow White and the Not So Seven Dwarfs because
Yeah.
they weren't dwarfs. They were like
The 7 not so dwarfs.
the 7 Not So Dwarfs and Snow Not So White.
Yeah.
They
Wah,
they
wah.
are recasting her,
Of course.
and it was supposed to come out in March of 2024, and now it's slated for March, April of 2025 because they're going to recast her and reshoot most of the movie.
Yeah, of course.
And actually use dwarves. Not they're going to make people look like they're going to do the whole
the
Frodo
CG
thing.
Yeah. But hey, it makes a lot more sense than what they were gonna do. The 7
Regular sized people.
the 7 persons that live in this house.
They should have. No, that's bad.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
I want to get into what we're all talking
yeah.
about here and how we've been beaten around the bush. So Loki essentially becomes the most powerful being in the galaxy, or the universe, the multiverse, in not one ways, but several. In one way, he went off and studied a whole bunch of quantum mechanics for centuries. For centuries.
Yes.
So
How?
he is now smarter than Tony Stark. So
Yes.
they did that whole thing. Then he becomes time.
He can stop it. He can rewind it. He can move it. He can pause it.
I'm not even talking about that yet. I'm not there yet. Like, and that was my point before when I said we had 2 montages in this episode that was under 45 minutes, and the one montage they could have got rid of was him and Sylvie going back and forth. It was completely unnecessary because you find out, oh, he can just stop time. He could just pause time whenever he wants to. Why wasn't that established before when he was time slipping? Why wasn't it just even mentioned that this was a remote possibility for him to be able to do? It's a thing that happens.
I'll tell you this. The first time I watched it, I missed what happened there. The second time I watched it, he puts his finger up and time pauses. I was like, ooh. I actually really enjoyed that part.
I hated it.
I like the fact that he suddenly had that. And he goes, and what makes you think this is the first time we had this conversation. And then He Who Remains like, oh, look at you.
Oh, his
But it
his
was-
back and forth with Jonathan Majors was fantastic. I'm not taking away from any of that at all. But I'm just
No,
saying
but
that
that's
him
the
being
point.
able to like throw a finger up and pause time, and
Well,
it's
he's
like
had centuries to figure it out. So
Has he?
yes, he totally Doctor Who'd it. Again, my favorite part of Doctor Who is
But how
punching
did-
through that wall for like 5,000 years. You know, like it was awesome. Like he does it. He comes back and he's like, suddenly he's Doctor Who. He totally became Doctor Who in this.
No,
he was like,
he does
he was
not.
Dr. Donna.
No, he's
Dr.
not.
Donna.
No,
It was hilarious.
No.
I loved it.
No, and here's the reason why. Because he's not supposed to do this. And this is why I was saying they wrote off 2 characters. There is no need. He Who Remains is now Loki.
Uh-huh.
They wrote Jonathan Majors off at the end of this.
Well, that
Hey, we're
He Who
gonna
Remains,
bring
yeah.
you. We're gonna bring you.
they
all
wrote
of the-
they wrote that version off.
yes, He
But
Who
he
Remains,
did
yeah.
have that line. Variants of me out there everywhere. We're all blah
yeah,
blah
they're
blah.
all out there.
They
And then
left
there's the other line talking about when he goes to the other variant in 616 adjacent, which is
adjacent.
referring to Quantumania.
Yes.
Yeah, I just said that.
Very much.
Was like,
Right.
oh, but it seems like they dealt with that. I'm like,
Right.
oh, that's a good nod to Quantumania.
Right, and it's a way of saying, "Oh, we're gonna continue writing them off," which, if they
Not
do-
writing him off, no.
They
But
left
you've
the
been
door
saying it-
wide open for another variant
For
of his
more.
to just walk through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There are
Right, but then
variants of
now-
me everywhere. You're not going to catch them all. You're not going to kill them all. Good luck trying, sir. And then the one person who could actually, accomplish something like that, they sat him on a throne where he cannot move.
But
and his
But-
cape is timelines.
but
Yes.
He has a cape of timelines.
buddy, but he's connected to all the timelines, and he throws himself via holograms. He's going to be involved a lot more. They're not going to write him out completely. He's
No,
going to pop
absolutely
up
not,
here
no.
and there.
No, they're not going
He's
to
going
write.
to pop up. He's going to pop up. He's now like the Watcher.
He is the most powerful being in the Utah. He is Jafar before he becomes the genie, as he becomes the genie in the bottle.
The most powerful sorcerer.
He- it-
I get it.
No, I hated it. I liked where they were originally going with Loki, but when they made him this, and he looked awful.
He looked weird.
at the end. He looked awful.
Mm.
His horn helmet was stupid. It
Yeah.
looked
His little booties as he walked up the stairs.
Why?
I mean, because he's gonna be sitting there forever. He wants to be cozy.
He should have just killed Sylvie.
He
Mhm.
should've just-
He should have just killed Sylvie.
Probably.
I thought they were going that way when she had that line in there, just like, "What, you waiting for my blessing? You're not gonna get it."
No, she said,
Yeah.
"I give it to you."
No, she didn't. She said, "You're not gonna get it."
Yeah. If you're waiting for my blessing, I'm not giving it to you,
Oh.
or something like that.
Yeah, she never said,
yeah.
"I'm gonna give it to you."
Absolutely. not.
Okay, I hear what you're saying about that, but here's the big thing that I was saying since the beginning, and it made me so confused. Where are they going with this season? I didn't see them doing what they did at the end. Like, I didn't see them ending like this. But do you remember me in episode 2 saying, "Why are they even doing this? All of this is inevitable." And that's the entire point of this episode, is exactly what I've been saying since the beginning, and I keep bringing it back up. Where else would this have led besides the thing breaking? When they kept talking about, "Oh yeah, we need to increase the throughput multiplier and blah blah blah," and I'm like, but if things are continuing to expand, okay, fine, grow something a little bit bigger. Then what? You're gonna prune some things and not all of them? I thought they were gonna come up with some kind of baloney answer as to why this made sense, but it made no sense the entire time. Why didn't the geniuses, Obi and Victor Timely and anybody else involved, and Genius Loki at one point, realize that before they got to that point? And I've been saying it since the beginning, like, none of this makes sense. All of it's inevitable. If it's exploding and they don't go back and stop her from killing He Who Remains, nothing else is going to change this. And here we are. The end of this entire season is Superman 2, when they just undo the entire movie.
Well, he didn't undo everything. He just took the place of the Loom.
I
and
said it
he
would have
is
been.
the Loom
Yeah.
and He Who Remains all in one.
Yeah.
He's a tree.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is reminiscent of what the 9 realms we saw from Asgard looked like. So it's something he did that in a way because it's what he knew of like universes.
He was a tree.
he was a tree. Yes, which if look back and look at Thor. They had a tree that was combining, it had all the realms together. So he did that because that's what he knows about, like, containing things and keeping order is a
Right,
tree.
but if the loom couldn't hold all of the timelines, he has like 6 in one hand and 6 in the other hand, and the rest are on his cape. Where are all the other timelines?
They're branching off of those.
Yeah.
And he's holding them in the middle because he can.
Yeah.
Because he can.
Because he can.
Because he can.
Disney wrote garbage. Garbage. This was hideous. This entire episode was pointless. We watched what this episode was scenes from the first season and scenes from all of the second season thrown into an episode, and then at the very end, Loki going, "I'm a tree." That's what this episode was. How much new footage did you see in this episode?
It was
not much.
He's a tree.
He's a tree. He's a tree.
And not even a cool tree like an ant. Just a tree.
Just a tree.
He sits in the middle of it. When I watched him going, like when he came out and he like took apart as soon as he put his hands out and he went into Cerebral and he put his hands out
Cerebro
and he dismantled the loom. I was like, he just became the most powerful being. And then he continues to walk through it. And as his clothes and his jacket and his shirt are peeling off, and then all of a sudden the clothes of Loki appear and his helmet appears.
Well, some weird Loki.
I was like, what garbage is this?
Pajama Loki.
Okay, so if my thing with this whole thing that you were just talking about, if Loki can go out there and not die, why didn't he go out there to begin with and try to fix the problem? Why did Mobius have to put on the suit? Why did Victor Timely have to put on the suit if Loki could just go out there and survive? Like the bombardment of radiation, like Loki has no problem surviving at all. And now he's sitting out there, so I don't understand the point of the giant spacesuit that they had to put on.
And I love in every episode, go as quickly as possible. And they go out there and it's like, gunk, gunk, gunk,
gunk. Yeah.
There's no quick. It's
not at all.
This episode was some of the worst I have seen Disney Plus put out there for Marvel. It was hideous. I was so mad at the end of this. I was mad at the end of, I'll say this. At the end of Obi-Wan, I was mad because Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson showed back up for a cameo as Qui-Gon Jinn, and I was only mad because I was saying, no, it won't happen the entire time, and you both were like, it's going to happen.
Well, it did, and it was amazing.
And it ended up happening, and I was mad only because I was wrong. In this case, I was mad because they made Loki a tree. They did a series finale where Loki became a tree.
So, one of the first things that I have that I kind of want to ask about, what exactly are the laws of this time travel that they're doing here?
We talked about this last time.
But now they introduce this whole thing about it's Loki's consciousness that's traveling through time because he's like popping into places where he already is.
Popping into his body. A second body.
It's like a consciousness thing that's going on. But a couple of episodes ago, we saw him prune himself.
Yes.
So.
Well, because he was able to travel through time and space, which is different than him popping into his body again, which would be just time.
Yeah, but.
So he wasn't traveling through time and space when he did that. When he was going to where he was traveling only through time.
When did he learn how to do that?
It's
just a thing that happens. That's my whole point. It's just a thing that immediately happens. He can raise a finger and freeze time, and now he can pop in and out of his body at different places in time. Like it's It's his consciousness that's going all over the place, but that wasn't established. That was never talked about. It was never shown to us in any meaningful way that this was going to be able to happen. It's just something new that they allowed Loki to do for reasons unknown, and it's stupid. I want to know why. How come in 2 episodes ago, it was like the whole thing was like, I pruned myself because that's what had to happen. We saw that in the first episode, how he pruned himself, or somebody came along and pruned him or whatever. Like, and we've seen multiple Lokis, this variant of Loki, multiples in the same place in the same time before. Now all of a sudden it's, oh, no, never mind. It's consciousness.
Yep.
Why? It's so dumb. It's so they're not. They can't even follow their own rules of time travel in a season of television that's supposed to be about time travel. It absolutely blows my mind. And that's not. How come nobody else remembers? Like, how come Mobius doesn't remember having the conversation with Loki when they're talking about, oh, we had to prune the kid? That never. Why doesn't he remember this?
Well, because he shook his hand and he spaghettied. That timeline spaghettied. Again, they've changed their format of what time is.
In a single season, they changed their own rules of time travel.
Yes.
They had a multiverse. They had branches. They had time slipping. They had time travel. They have consciousness travel.
Yeah. And he brings up 616 at one point. I'm like, what's 616? Are you labeling the branches now? Or is that not a branch? Is that the timeline? Which is separate to the branch? I don't know.
No. The branch is their multiverse. This has been established since the beginning. We said this weeks ago. This has been established in season 1. They even called it a multiverse in this season. This is MCU's way of creating the multiverse, is the branches.
Yeah,
it just goes to show you. It just goes to show you.
Why are you confused? You sound confused though between multiverse and the branch, because you just asked, is it a multiverse or is it a branch?
You want to know why? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Changing. Go ahead, Will.
I was going to say, you want to know why it's confusing? Because Marvel doesn't know what they're doing with time travel. If this was the Marvel of old, pre-Endgame, this kind of thing would have been established in Doctor Strange. Like the concept of what the multiverse is, the way that it works and everything, it would have been established there, or it would have been established in the first season of Loki, and the same concept would have easily carried over to this. And there would be no questions, there would be no ambiguity, there would be no confusion. We would all understand what was going on. But no, not at all. We're just going to throw it all at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Like spaghetti.
Like spaghetti. Ooh.
Like spaghetti.
There you go.
But no, MCU's definition of a multiverse is this branch concept.
Right, but then they have a circular thing as well.
Only with
Loki.
Which
contradicts it.
Only with Loki.
Only with Loki. You've got spaghetti in this. We saw spaghetti once again, or we'll say first in Quantumania, but not really. And then we see, like, whatever the heck they were doing in Multiverse of Madness. They're just going all over the place, and they're trying to figure out what's going to stick. And so far, nothing has stuck.
Not really.
It's just a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
It's like going to a buffet that's like, if Golden Corral meets a Chinese buffet. Like, wait, what are we eating right now? There's pizza, there's chicken fingers, and then there's like suddenly sushi.
They have that at Chinese buffets.
I understand that, and it gets confusing. But then you have meatloaf.
They have that at Chinese buffets too.
I haven't seen meatloaf at a Chinese buffet.
I have.
Meatloaf?
Yeah. Hey Ma.
Hey Ma. That's not. It sounds nothing like that. It's Ma.
Whatever.
The meatloaf. Like, it's not Hey Ma. Hey Ma. That's it's that cat again. Look, the one that looks like Grandma. The one that looks like it's wearing makeup. Michael Rappaport. Oh, dude. If you haven't seen that, anybody hasn't seen the guy yelling for his mother because of the creepy cat, check it out.
The chickens too.
The chickens? I haven't seen the chickens. Here's the chickens thing?
Yeah. There's a video out there of a couple of dogs jumping over a fence to grab some guy's chicken. Ma! Ma! They took the guy's chicken! Are you mother... Ma!
That guy, He's been in so many movies,
Yeah.
and nobody has any idea he's the guy from the YouTube videos.
Nope.
Like, that's his new claim to fame, is just the Ma guy. You remember the other one? Jay, look, Jay, it's a baby wheel. It's a baby wheel, kid. Yeah, it's like basically the same thing. Anyway, whoop, 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 back here. This episode undid
Everything.
what it done did.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And like I in my notes, I can't tell you how many times I wrote "duh" in capital letters with exclamation points because they're like, "Oh yeah, well, the loom expands, but it's not enough." Duh.
What they could have done is they could have finished off the last episode of season 1, made an after credit scene of Loki just grabbing all the timelines and sitting on the throne, and then called it a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would and we would have been in the same spot we're in now, but 6 hours of time not wasted.
So there's
I didn't hate this season that much.
I didn't hate the
There
season
were
that
some
much
really
either.
cool
The
parts.
only reason why I say that is because this
It went
episode
nowhere.
no, this episode nerfed the entire season.
I know.
So there's no need for it.
Like I said, in episode 2, I'm like, all of this is dumb. All of this is just leading to nothing. Like it's all inevitable.
Oh, it all
It's
led to-
inevitable it's going to break. Like, why are they fighting and fighting? And why do the genius people not realize that there's nothing they can do?
Nah.
I'm going to turn to Jerry Seinfeld. There's nothing they can do.
I
Why couldn't they know? Who's
I-
right there?
Even though I'm with you, the geniuses should have been able to like figure this out weeks ago.
Yes.
But I do like Timely's, explanation. It's like dividing by 0. It's impossible. Like I do
Well, of course, but
like
he should
that.
have known that in the first place.
Yes.
If things are constantly expanding,
Infinite.
what's making it a little bit bigger going to do?
Did they realize that it was constantly expanding?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. If no one's
Yes.
there pruning things, the branches are going to continue
Yeah.
to
because
branch.
Obi gave the definition. He says the loom is supposed to, as it expands, it is supposed to prune things automatically.
But you
never said
can't
that. When did he say
you can't compensate for 0. That was
No,
the whole
right.
point. You
But
can't
he
do
did
it.
say that. Obi, when they were having the conversation, and when smart Loki was about, when Loki was about to go to become smart, he's having the conversation with Obi, and Obi says, the loom's not supposed to do this. As it gets bigger, it's supposed to automatically prune branches that are
I didn't hear anybody say automatically prune branches because that's what they do, and they were trying to not do that anymore because it was killing people.
But
Yeah.
the loom does it automatically.
They never said that. When did
No,
they say
no,
when?
no, 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 no.
When?
Jonathan Major says that at the end. That the
At
the end?
loom,
Oh,
the
Ellie
loom or
says
the loom or the TVA is
It's
a
a fail-safe.
fail-safe. It'll
Yeah.
prune everything and just leave the sacred timeline. That
Yeah.
is
No,
a
no, I
thing.
get that.
When did
That-
Obi say that though?
I'll find it.
Please do, because I don't remember that at all. If that was the case, then that again undoes.
So while you're
everything.
looking for that, I actually want to bring up one other thing. Well, 2 more things about this episode that I just absolutely hated. When Loki's having a sit down conversation with the one who remains, I love their interaction. I love their back and forth. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not taking anything away from that. However, he does say, Jonathan Majors does say, well, you have options. You can either destroy the loom and bring on a war or kill Sylvie. And I'm like, destroy the loom.
Right.
Destroy the loom. Bring on the war. We're going to get to a war anyways. Like
And
something
that's what Loki was planning on doing.
something's going to happen. Like we're going to get to that point anyways where like if they're even going to continue to go down the direction of like secret war, but this could have been like the linchpin of that. Yeah. Blow up the loom, let the timelines run amok, have an excuse to like bring in a whole bunch of extra characters or continue with this story. And at least that way it would have been a singular narrative. Okay? The loom is destroyed, timelines are running amok, the multiverse is doing whatever the multiverse wants to do, and that could have been like a great story moving forward. You could have been like, and you need to like bring the Avengers back together to like intergalactic travel and stop it and the
Right.
whole nine.
Which
Like
is
it
what I
could have
thought.
been easy.
We all thought they were going that way, and
It could have been
sense.
so simple
Right.
just to set that storyline up, but no, Loki has to sit on a throne father time.
he always saw himself sitting on a throne, and he always said, "I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose."
Mm.
So I actually like the fact that it came full circle there. And that's the only thing I'm holding on to that makes me enjoy this. He
I
always knew he was burdened, which is the specific word that he
yeah.
gets when he's talking, when he has that sit down talk with Mobius, which I thought was beautifully done, with him
Yes.
spaghettifying at the end, him
Yes.
shaking his hand, thank you, like, I already know what you're gonna do, what you're gonna try. He's like, "Oh, you've seen the set list. Okay, what's this all about?" And he starts asking these questions, and he gets into it, and honestly, I thought it was really great. It's the
It's
first interview they had. He tells them that all the things he's planning to do, and he goes, "How do you choose who lives or who dies?" And, it's like, what is that? And Mobius like, "There's no comfort." Tells a story about the 8-year-old kid, the hesitation, and the hunters die.
Looper.
The whole point was they lost point of the big pic. They lost sight of the big picture. You
Slooper.
got to keep the big picture in the mind. And which, yeah, okay. But that was the whole thing, is like, you need to get over yourself, get over what you want, and recognize what is more important. And how do you live with that type of burden? Well, scar tissue. All right, choose your burden. Thank you, handshake, spaghetti, and that's that. But honestly, it was one of the best scenes in the whole series because he went back and had a real conversation, because he knew the only person who would have that conversation with him and be real with him was
Mhm.
somebody who became his best friend.
Yeah.
For once, he finally had a friend, somebody who he loved, and had that conversation. Shook his hand as he disappears, and then he goes back. And I actually did appreciate, because we talked about this in the other episode, when he's grabbing for the spaghetti and when they're in Obi's place, and it's like, what's he think he's gonna do? And then you see him here, and he stops it all. It's like, well, that's what he was hoping he could do, but now he can, after centuries of learning and trying and blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
Centuries of
Now he
learning
can
and
stop the
trying.
spaghetti. Now the centuries thing, it's a Doctor Who reference. Will, I know you haven't seen it, but Chuck and I have talked about it. There's a scene where he's trapped in this castle, and he's trying to find a way to get out. But the only way out is like this massive, like, crystal wall that's
Mm.
like 10 feet, thick, and you can't get through. So he goes up and starts punching the wall, like bloody fist and all, and he keeps punching it. And then as he's punching, he's being chased by this monster, and the monster kills him. But he noticed that every time he dies, he resurrects and goes back to the beginning of where he was in this castle. So he goes back, runs through it all, punches the wall some more. And every time he does it, he gets through a little bit more of the wall from punching it. So 5,000 years or so go by, or whatever it was, until finally he breaks through the wall. It was a really interesting concept. Like this Groundhog Day, but one thing was still remaining, was that the building itself, anything that he did to the environment did get affected, did get changed. Like if he knocked a brick over, the brick was still knocked over when he reset. So he kept going through it. And that's what kind of happens here, where he's going through the centuries and everything, then gets the knowledge. They also did it later on, earlier on, I guess, in Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, where they're like, we need to learn how to play guitar. So they get in their time machine, they go away, and then a second later they're back, and they're like, man, that was a bodacious 18 months of extensive guitar training. And then suddenly they had all this knowledge. Like, we're
Okay.
seeing it in like the current time, where it's like, okay, for us it was half a second, for them it was 18 months. And it's been done so many times, but I've always thought that was like, okay, what a way to like cheat your way through and give people the knowledge or the skill in order to move forward. And I've always loved that, because I talk about, I've used this as examples for so many things. Like, imagine playing Mario, like old school Mario, and always going to the warp zone and jumping to level 8. You all do that.
That's
We
how I
jump up,
play it.
yeah, we jump to level 8. But if you've never played all the levels in between, you don't have the skills to kill those, whatever is going to come at you, those jumping, flying Koopas, because you haven't dealt with them before. You're skipping ahead beyond your skill level. But in this, it's the opposite, where you've learned all those skills, and then you're resetting and going back. It's like, now that I've got the knowledge, I'm going to totally knock this out. It's like a cheat code. So at this point, he got the cheat code to have the knowledge, and then redid it.
It amounted to nothing.
Well,
Nothing.
okay.
So I did
So
bring
I had to go
that
back and
point up.
find that. I couldn't find it yet. I have to go back to the actual episode and find it. And
Yeah,
I'll send it to you
I
guys.
don't remember Obi saying that. I feel like Obi was out of the loop, and with what the reality was.
So Loki's sitting on this throne.
His
Basically,
golden throne.
basically time, right? What
Uh-huh.
happens when a variant of Loki, or even past Loki's self, learns about this? I think that would be
I
a
guess
little
we'll
bit.
find out.
I guess that would be a little bit more interesting than whatever it is they're doing here.
Well,
I would
it'd
like
be
to see
very
something like
interesting.
that.
Well, who's to say we don't get to see that? I mean, because we do know
That's
there
what
are
I'm
two
saying.
different
I would like
versions
to
of
see
Lokis
something
we
like
have
that.
followed. We've seen this Loki. He was pulled out of his timeline because he took that space stone, the Tesseract, which became useless. It was a useless piece of paperweight. We've seen this Loki, and we've also seen the other Loki that went off to do Dark World and Ragnarok and all that stuff, and then eventually get killed there. Who says not a Loki that survived somehow and didn't get crushed by the Mad Titan there, Thanos? No resurrections, great, but that's just one timeline.
For
with
a
all these-
guy who has no resurrections and then becomes time itself.
yeah, I know,
Yeah, yeah.
but I mean, weren't you glad that you got to see some of it? It was pretty cool. First season was awesome. First season was amazing.
The first season was great, and they could have
Yes.
done an after credit scene, and they avoided all of season 2.
I okay, got it. But it would be really cool to see this Loki, the god of stories, which is what he is now, facing, another Loki, or confronting another Loki.
How's he
at some
gonna
point.
fight? How's he gonna face another Loki though? If he's sitting
I
there
don't
on that throne, and he has to like hold on to the time branches and like
Well,
he's
that's
weighed
my
down
point
with
of.
his cape and everything else. Like I
Well,
don't know,
I
man.
think I think the idea is that I mean, we already know that he can put off like holograms of himself.
A
But we also
hologram.
know that he can stop time, he can manipulate time, he can reverse time, he can go, speed it up. He can do all these things. We don't know what else he can do now that he has control of time.
I'm just gonna.
Can he put himself in a timeline to be involved in it one way or another? And what can he do when he's there? Is he just a projection, or
I'm
is
just gonna
he
kind of.
something that's
At this point, I'm
manifested into
gonna.
something
At this point, I'm gonna just kind of look at Loki as if he's Superman. Like you're way too powerful now.
He's
Yeah.
more powerful than Superman.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
At this point, he is way more powerful
Superman's
than
powers are endless. He can rebuild walls with his eyes, and
They stopped doing that.
they stopped doing that.
They did it for that one, those two movies, and they never went back to it again.
Yeah,
Nah,
you
he's
know
just
why?
He's gonna throw a
Because
big.
it was hot garbage.
He's gonna
No,
throw
he
a
has
big.
his. Now he just has his main powers, and that's it. He can fly. He's bulletproof. He has the frozen breath.
He's
got
gonna come
ice-free
along.
breath.
Superman's gonna come along and throw a giant cellophane S at Loki, and that's gonna be the end of it.
And then Superman has to hold on and keep time. That's the crossover. Now, I mean, I think we all know where we're at here with this episode. I'm not trying to rush us through it, but I'm thinking like I kind of want to revisit Quantumania again, see a little bit more of Kang. I don't think I've watched it again since the first time, so I do want to revisit it. I know it's on Disney Plus, and my wife hasn't seen it, so we're probably gonna watch it together at some point soon. But boy, what was I getting with it? Oh, the idea is out there that because of everything they've done and because of how long they've dragged it out, there are thoughts and talks and feelings and guesses that they're really not going to recast the Fox X-Men, and they're going to start bringing these mutants in with their original actors.
I would not be opposed to any of this. This is
I
something that
wouldn't
should have
either.
happened years ago. At this point,
Well, none of us have seen the movie that came out yesterday, but I heard there's a massive drop in it. There's
What,
like
the Marvels?
there's like 3 post-credit scenes. There's like an early one, a mid, and then a final.
What, the
end.
Marvels?
Yes.
I heard it was a big flop too.
Eh,
I haven't heard anything
But-
about it. I haven't been paying attention.
but I heard that there's a drop in there, and
Well-
they made it seem like because of this, they're probably not going to recast a ton of these characters. I know they recast Halle Berry with the younger version, and they recast Rebecca Romaine with the younger version, and they took all those different versions and started like put them together. But some of the big ones,
They recasted a lot of people.
they did.
Well, for First
But I don't think
Class, like that
Yeah.
crew, that's something
Right.
different.
Right.
But they've been building off of them since they did the original trilogy. The original trilogy was 20-something years ago.
Yeah, at this point now, it was literally 23 years ago. It was 2000.
Yeah.
When the first X-Men came out, which back then was great. Rewatch it now, it is super corny because it's before Marvel did their stuff
Yeah.
and made things a little bit more serious. You know?
And
So,
on the subject of recasting, like, I don't even know what something like that would look, because I can't imagine like Ian coming into this and like anybody taking him seriously as Magneto. Like, it would have to be Michael Fassbender.
It would have to be.
Yeah,
have to be Michael
That's what I'm
Fassbender.
saying. They should use the first class
Yeah.
actors and not the original trilogy actors.
Yeah.
But they're still going to use Hugh Jackman. I mean, I thought he was done, but he's back for Deadpool 3, and I feel like, I mean, all that joking and everything about Harry Potter coming in and being him.
Yeah.
He straight up said, is like, no. I mean, I would do it, but nobody's asked me, and it's not why I bulked up, and you know, it's all just been a big joke. I mean, the idea that they talked about before.
Wait. Daniel Radcliffe got bulked up?
Yeah. He's in. Yeah.
Yeah.
His parents are like physical trainers. So they're like crazy about it. So people are asking me, he's like, no, I just decided to finally focus on my body. Like,
Kind of reminds me
He
about like,
wanted
what
to
was
be
it,
healthy.
10 or 15 years ago, when like some reporter stupidly asked the lead singer of Alter Bridge if he was going to be the new frontman for Zeppelin. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah.
And he laughed it off
Yeah.
like, this is ridiculous. Why? I mean, he basically said the same thing, like, I would do it, but this is ridiculous. Why would you even ask me a question like this?
What makes you think that?
Why would
looking it up?
anybody think something like that?
What are you looking up? Daniel Radcliffe or
Daniel Radcliffe.
and you want to see him in his underwear freaking out?
No, there's a whole thing with him and Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, I know.
So, okay.
He wouldn't be bad. That's a funny thing. He actually wouldn't be bad. He'd look good.
Yeah,
maybe. Maybe.
But I mean, here's the reality: Wolverine is a short, hairy dude, and they talked about they've made jokes about Danny DeVito because he's so tiny. If you watch the old animated series, remember the old Australian Wolverine?
Yeah.
We're talking like not the Fox 25 ones we knew, but the ones before he was like orange. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I've been poo-pooing on this episode for a little while now, and I absolutely hate it. But I do want to touch on a couple of things that I really did like. And first and foremost, it's the whole conversation between Loki and the one who remains. I love how Majors just sat there for a moment watching Loki and Sylvie fight, and it was so blatantly apparent that he knew what was going on, and he was just kind of sitting there waiting for it to play out. Like, I thought the whole thing was fantastic. I thought that entire sequence was amazing.
I love what he says to her. He's like, are you seriously just gonna sit there and watch this over and over again? And you're like, oh, pause, hold on, wait. So how many times you been at this?
Yeah.
Is this the first time we've had this conversation? And then that's what it leads to. You know, he's like, you've been slipping through time thinking that you were gonna beat the system, and yet here you are. I paved the whole road. Reincarnation, baby. I actually really, really, really loved He Who Remains in this. He was fantastic.
So I love how he was like, what are your thoughts on Victor?
Yeah.
But what I don't get is he is like the master of time, yet he doesn't know what's going on.
Well, he did.
He knew he died. He knew that he came back.
Mm-hmm.
He knew all of this stuff, but doesn't know how many times he's been through this.
No.
Why?
Because.
So Loki can do everything that he does.
That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Loki bested him at the end, and he wasn't expecting that.
Not
and
really.
Why? I don't know. But he was caught on to everything else. Yes, but why? There was a scene at the last episode where Sylvie kills him and then pushes him through that, and everything resets and blah blah blah. He gets sent back in time. It's the beginning of the time slipping. Yada yada yada. where he says, "Oh," and yep, we just crossed the threshold.
I
I've never
think
been here
it's
before.
I
This is
think it's
brand new.
because everybody involved, whether it's namely just Renslayer and the one who remains, they probably did not see Loki ever having a change of heart.
Right.
They probably didn't see that coming. Because you even get into it like later on when he's sitting down and he's having his not later on, but a little bit later on, where he's sitting down and he's having his conversation with Mobius, and it's like Renslayer chose you probably because Loki is incredibly selfish. Like, I don't think anybody actually saw like a face turn coming from him, so it's probably the reason why he was chosen for this thing. Like, okay, you can either let everybody on the timeline die or you can kill Sylvie. Like,
Speaking of Renslayer, what was the purpose of
yeah,
of showing her in the void?
that's what
Of
I was
her
talking
going,
about.
like face to face with Goliath. Yeah.
That's what I was talking
Right?
about earlier when they left a massive door open. So if they want to
Yeah.
do something, like, we know there's variants of Loki out there. We know Sylvie's still out there. There are variants of the one who remains, or Victor Timely, or whomever you want to call him, still out there. And now Renslayer is in this place in Egypt with a pyramid behind her, and there's massive
It's not
purple
Egypt.
thing.
She's in the void,
No, she's in the void.
and she's face to face with Goliath.
She's in the void. That's where Loki went. Was the void.
Oh,
Yeah, she was true. Yeah, she's not in Egypt. She's just in that place where.
I thought
Land
Egypt
of the
after. I was
Lost.
like, why is she in Egypt? And I was like,
Oh,
she
yeah.
was in the void.
How do you pronounce her name? Gugu Mbatha?
Sure.
Who?
Okay. Gugu.
Okay.
Renslayer. Her name is Gugu Mbatha,
Sure.
I think.
Cool.
Pretty sure. It's Gugu.
Just call her Renslayer.
Gugu.
And then they brought Miss Minutes back.
Gugu Mbatha Ra.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume that they just reprogrammed Miss Minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
That's kind of what I'm going with.
Was it Casey who was like, or Mobius who was like, is she gonna be like?
No, it was B-15 who asked. Yeah.
Is she gonna be
Yeah.
okay?
She's not gonna try to kill all of us. Is it? Like, no. So I'm just gonna assume that it was reprogrammed and now it's nice.
It was all way too easy.
Interesting.
All way too easy.
Miss Minutes also played Batgirl in the Killing Joke.
Okay.
And she was Bubbles and Powerpuff Girls.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give this episode a -10 because it was that
Wow.
bad.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. No, I give it like a 4 out of 10. It was just not
So
good.
bad.
It was not a good episode at all. It ruined the entire season for me. It left me with a bad taste in my mouth. The MCU does not know where they're going. Even with the Marvels, I'm like,
Oh, I totally forgot about something else that I kind of had an issue with. So Loki's doing his whole time slip thing, traveling further back into time so he can hopefully like make it to the loom in time and blah, 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 right? And he gets to the point where Victor Timely is in the room with Miss Minutes and Renslayer and they're grilling him.
Yeah.
And if you remember this, they try, like, Renslayer and Miss Minutes are very much against anything that Loki is trying to do, like, during this time frame, right?
Yep.
But Loki comes in the room, is like, I know, I understand, I need him, and it's like, what? They're just gonna let this happen? Like, at that point, they're kind of enemies.
Run after him? Yeah. No, they just. I know. He was like, I know everybody's upset. You're probably feeling pretty bad right now, but we gotta go. And he grabs him and leaves. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
And they just let it happen?
But it was still. I mean, what are they gonna do?
They were fighting. They
Chase
were
him?
not on the same
Did they
page
open
at
the door?
all.
No, they weren't. Not at all.
Very much enemies in that moment when this happened. But here...
Right, but they weren't expecting him to run in there and just shock them like that, and he did. And run away. Got it. Move on.
They didn't run away. They walked briskly. There was no chase.
They were shocked. Exactly, there was no chase. They cut it. It was quick. It was part of a montage. It's a montage. And montages, anything can happen. Nobody cares.
It was stupid, and it didn't make sense in terms of the story that they were laying out for the season.
that
It did not.
part of a montage. The
was.
two montages
No, it
were...
was.
Nope, it was. It was.
When he's
Steve
doing
Ray
the whole
did that.
jump back and forth in time thing, going further back, and you got to do
That's what he
this and
first
make
said,
sure you
it's
get.
not, it's not quicker. It's earlier. That's
Right, but then that stopped the montage. The first montage was him going to the loom, Victor Teddy going to the loom, going to the loom, going to the loom.
And then
it
they went
stopped
further
the
back.
and then it stopped that montage, and you
Yeah.
started going further back. That changed the montage. Just like when at the very end with the montage when he's, I'm gonna kill Victor. I'm gonna kill He Who Remains. I'm gonna kill him. No, either I kill me, you kill me. I kill me, you kill me. That whole
The
thing.
end of the montage
And
was when he goes and says, "How long does it take you to learn all this stuff?"
That was
the
the
end of
end.
the montage. Yeah, because
Yeah.
everything else leading up to that was still part of the montage.
Yeah, I'm with Lee on
Some
that
parts
one.
were
That
longer,
was
some
yeah,
parts
it
were
was all
shorter.
it was all. But I'm just this isn't even my point. Arguing about what the montage begins and where it ends. I don't care. What I cared about is there were enemies, and now they're not, and we don't know why. They just cut scene and went to something completely different.
Yes.
It's stupid.
Can we explain, please, why when Victor Timely finally makes it? I mean, aside from the fact that there were words said that were not actually said, if you watch it with the subtitles, he goes, "You're doing very well, fantastic." Like, those words were not heard, and I watched it 3 times, and I did not hear a thing. It was just subtitles. That was it. And then when he finally gets back in, and the door's shut, he just goes, "Pumpkins."
yeah.
What?
I don't
What
know.
did pumpkins mean?
I don't know.
It meant nothing.
What
Ro-
I want to know.
I know what
What
I
I
know what it
want-
meant. I know what it meant.
What?
Rosebud.
Was it Cinderella? Oh, jeez. Great. So now we're gonna spend the next like 2 years trying to figure out what pumpkins mean.
Rosebud.
Then we realize it's
Pumpkins
like Jonathan
is their
Major's,
rosebud.
favorite sled.
So here's the part I don't get. Is you talk about,
Spoiler alert.
you have all these geniuses in a room,
Yeah.
and Loki's like, we got to do it faster. So
Mhm.
how many times did he try to do it faster? And it got to the point where not only was it as soon as Timely stepped out, it was when he was still inside that he started turning to spaghetti.
Yeah, they kept shooting it differently. Yeah.
And I was like, how many times are they going to try the same thing? I mean, what's the definition of insanity? Trying the same thing over and
Well,
over
that's
again.
why he said it's not faster, it's earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
But how many times did they try that?
But that's the point of the whole thing where I kept saying, like, all of this is inevitable. There's nothing you can do to fix it, nothing you can do to change it. The loom is going down. Just figure out what you can do to like collect what you can afterwards. And he
Right.
did that. He literally did that and collected what he could afterwards. He blew it up, they moved on. That's that. That is the entire season was inevitability. All of it was going to happen. All of it was fate. But what do you do after that happens? That's when he had to make that decision. And honestly, like, I'm watching it and I saw his face at the end, and that's when he realized, man, I had a glorious purpose and it's a burden. That's why I was burdened with glorious purpose. And I'm like, as much as I hate the way this went, because I wanted to see him continue to grow as a character.
Well, now he's going to grow as a tree.
Listen, if this is a bookend for his character, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not the end.
Well, I did say when I was watching this with my wife, I'm just like, look at his ears, they're so big. Oh man, he's getting so old.
He is.
He's getting so old.
Yeah.
When they started this episode off, and they showed him in Avengers, and he's like, "My name is Loki, and I'm burdened with glorious purpose." I'm like, he's like 20. Now he's like in his 50s, or his ears are so big he looks like he's in his 60s. No offense, Tom Hiddleston, you're a great looking dude, but the reality is, you probably had bigger ears than we were expecting, and now because you're getting older, they're so much bigger.
Wow.
They're old man ears, and it's like, man, like there's such a jump here. Even Sophia DiMartino, who plays Sylvie, she was postpartum when they did the first season of Loki, and now you see her here, and she's like, what's the term? Super thin, like uncomfortably thin. And you're like, oh, like you don't even look like the same person anymore because she's so thin. And it's, yeah, and the hair. But you see her there, and then when they put her back in that scene with He Who Remains, you're like, oh, okay, even though your hair's the same, you still don't look like you did. You're very, very, very skinny. She looked much healthier when she was postpartum. And, it's sad. I mean, I know, points aside, when people think that they have to be a certain level of skinniness in order to look, attractive or whatever, but.
Okay, we do a podcast. We talk about movies. We do not pick out the different sizes of people's body parts. That's just uncalled for in a podcast.
No,
like
I'm
this.
just saying. I'm
None of us would actually do that. So why are you doing that?
I'm just saying. I think people focus too much on their appearance, and it's obvious when you see somebody who has changed dramatically. Look at Todd. Todd in El Camino was easily like 40 to 50 pounds heavier, and you're like, who's that? Oh, that's supposed to be
But you're
Todd.
making fun of Todd.
Hang on. I love how you just got through saying you think people focus way too much on their appearance, but you're the one who's focusing on their appearance.
Me?
But-
Him.
No, me. He's talking about me.
That's why I'm saying is
But
I'm
I'm-
making
but
I'm making
I'm
fun
saying-
of him because you brought up Hiddleston's big ears. Who picks up on stuff like that?
My wife and I.
I would never do stuff like that.
Okay, listen, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but there's a reality when you're playing a part and it's supposed to take place in a certain time. Like there's a big difference, and it's hard for us to forget and just be like, oh yeah, they look the same. Terrence Howard into
We could we could
Don
use-
Cheadle. There's
Fine,
a big difference
fine.
there. Those are two totally different people.
That's different.
I'm here. Let's move on. Like, okay, got it.
But we could use Hiddleston's ears though to create our digital person.
Jeez.
No.
We'll put Hiddleston's
Ian
ears.
McClellan's ears.
Oh no, his nose.
Nose.
Yeah, his nose.
His nose. His nose. Hiddleston's ears.
Okay,
Forrest
see?
Whitaker's lazy
No,
eye.
Forrest with his lazy
no,
eye
let's-
with what's his name's eyebrows, Morgan Freeman's eyebrows, and
And you just said we're not a podcast that talks about people's physical appearances.
I was setting.
and here we
I
are
was setting-
building
I'm
a
saying this.
symmetrical person
I was.
out of giant body parts
I'm saying
from
this.
other actors.
I was saying this on purpose, hoping you would pick up on what I was actually
okay.
saying.
All right. Well, here we are.
Because I'm the one who's been doing this for years,
Yeah.
and for like a year, Will's like, I never heard him talk about this.
Uma Thurman's hands.
Uma Thurman's giant
Hands.
Like,
And feet.
That's just mean.
Anyway,
she shops in the men's section at
The-
sports sections. Baseball
So another,
glove.
I will ask this last question, then I'm done. So Mobius goes home.
yeah.
Is he just
To
gonna
be a
take
creep.
over this guy's life?
No, he's just gonna stand there.
He's just gonna stand there on the side of the street and let time
Just
pass.
stand there and let time pass.
Let time pass.
Yeah.
Creepy dude across the street.
Yeah. Who looks exactly like Dad. Hey, who's that?
That's why
I
I'm
don't know.
asking. Like, is he
He
gonna
needs a
take over
mirror.
this guy's life? Because I mean, Wanda did it.
Oh.
So I'm just asking, like, is he gonna take over
Yeah,
this
but
poor
Wanda
guy's
had
life?
the ability to do that. He doesn't.
Well, I
he
mean-
can't just like astral project into somebody else's body, like Wanda did.
So do you think they're gonna make the Mobius Chronicles next? Like, what do you think we're doing here?
Owen Wilson's getting old too.
He's not getting old. They just put makeup on him and give him a really bad wig. It looked good in the first season. This one looked really
Owen
fake.
Wilson as a person is getting old. He's up there in his 50s and 60s too.
Well, whatever.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, dude was born in 1968, so he's in his 50s.
Yeah, 55.
Okay. And
And
he's so hot right now. Anyway,
I guess I'm just mad at Disney Plus ruining everything that they put their hands on. It's
Well,
just
what did you expect was going to happen? I mean, all of the things. Okay, the two biggest things we've talked about the most on this podcast since its inception were Star Wars and Marvel, right? I mean, we've talked about multiple other things, but as a whole, when we're talking franchise, it's been Star Wars and Marvel.
Mm.
Both franchises that started well before Disney was involved with them.
correct
Mm.
And we're seeing the fall of some of our favorite franchises
because of Disney.
of Disney.
Mhm.
And they're the ones who gave us these spin-offs, these shows and stuff like that. And they started off okay. Because it's like, oh, good. Like, at least they're trying to keep some of the feel and some of the...
Well, Disney did it again too. So there's a mini series on Disney Plus called Goosebumps.
Oh, great. Never watched... I'm not going to watch that.
So my oldest
Justin
daughter and
Long.
I'm like, let's start watching it.
Oh, geez. Did you show her the old ones?
No,
Please do.
we
The
watched
Haunted Mask. When the Haunted Mask came out, oh geez, what year? We were in second grade, Will, when that came out. That was I think that was the first book. No, first book I got was the Barking Ghost. I think I got that from Sean.
So all the titles of this season allude to a book in an episode then, but it's all revolving around one story.
Uh-huh.
They just took all the other stories, instead of it being an anthology, they made it just one
thing that
they all
yeah.
connect to.
I kind of got that.
And-
Slappy's back and this
Yeah.
and that.
So there's this. It's all about teenagers. Obviously, it's Goosebumps.
Mm.
And there's this boy who is obviously gay. All right. And which they've shown in many episodes and TV shows and yada yada. It is what it is. So I told my daughter, I said, listen, they're portraying him as gay. Obviously, I mean, he wears a sexy cat uniform to a Halloween party. It's bad. It's really bad. But what they do is, I said, if this goes any further than him just being gay, like this is a kid's show,
Yeah.
then we're turning it off. And we're in episode 3, and he finds this way through time travel to seduce this other kid, and they have this giant makeout scene
Oh.
in the show. And I'm like,
we're done.
I told you, I turned it off immediately. I'm like, this is a kid's show.
Yeah.
Like they're doing that with the movie Frozen. Disney is doing this. Elsa, who is like beloved by so many 5-year-old girls, they're making her a lesbian in Frozen 3. Like if people want to do this and they want to show these things like that, and they want to put it in adult, like PG-13 rated R films, and adults have the choice to watch it or not, fine. But they are ruining. They crossed a big line when it comes to desensitizing the kids in this sense, and just making it so kids are okay to watch this stuff.
It's like Inception. The idea is to get things at the root, and it's just like any agenda, make it normalized for the kids, because then they'll grow up to have it be a normalized thing, and then it becomes normal in society. So you can't like bring it up to everybody at a certain age, because they already have their foundations. So start it when their foundations are being built. And that's across the board for any type of idea.
Right, but the thing is, though, what's being allowed, though, is the people our age who have those kids that age are the ones allowing it.
Yeah, I know, but because...
So...
Yeah, I know.
And I know, Will, I know that you have a difference of opinion in some of these cases, but I know that when it comes to kids, you're usually on the same page.
No, when it comes to things like this, I draw the line at kids. I might have kind of a disagreement of what a quote unquote kid is. Like, are we talking under 10? Are we talking under 15? Are we talking under 18?
Under 10-year-olds watch things about kids that are in their teens, because that's the whole point, is they're growing into that.
Right.
So, I mean, geez, what did we watch when we were kids? Well, you and I are a different breed. We watched a lot of stuff we shouldn't have watched as kids.
Sure.
And idolized characters that were way older than we were.
Sure.
And had fantasies
I
about
I grew up on
that,
Boy Meets World, Family Matters.
Right, and things like that had some type of, moral that you followed and everything. And generally, you were growing up with Boy Meets World, and they were at least 3, 4, 5 years older than you. So you were like looking at those characters saying, oh, one day I'll be them. And because you felt like you were older than you were, because all of us did. I mean, geez, I saw some kids that were like college kids at the show I just did. We did this thing up at UNH. And I'm looking at these kids, I'm going, they're high schoolers. I'm like, oh, no, they're college kids.
Okay, so I actually got a funny story. I don't think Will's ever heard this story, but this is actually kind of funny. When I was 17 years old, I worked as a lifeguard at Water Country. It's a water park that was near my house where I grew up.
Yep.
And I was 17. I probably worked 60 hours a week. I would bring home $240 a week. I got paid like $7.25 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And me and my best friend would we just worked, and it was hysterical. Like, we just enjoyed it. But I would meet girls because I was a lifeguard. So I would meet girls on top of like the towers for the slides and stuff like that. And then we would go off and we would, make out and do crazy,
Yeah,
stupid
yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
So I met this one girl, and I was the lifeguard on the slide that I was letting people onto the slide, and it was a slower day. So she would come up and she would go down and she came up again, and I'm like, "Oh, you're doing it again." And I was 17. This girl's not too bad looking, and we're talking. I get her name and I get all this other stuff. So I finally asked her how old she was, and she's like, guess. And I was like, I hate this game. I guess I said I was 17. I was like, so you're 13, 14 years old, thinking she might be 3 or 4 years younger than me.
Mhm.
She's like, nope. Goes on the slide, goes down, comes back up. She's like, guess again. And I'm like, I don't know, 15, 16. She's like, nope. Goes on the slide, comes back up. She's like, guess again. I'm like, I'm going to shoot high. You've got to be at least between 18 and 21 years old. She looked like she was at least 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, between 18. She's like, nope. And she goes down and comes back up again. And I'm like, listen, this is my slide. Either you give me your age or you get off this slide for the remainder of the day. Do not, at least while I'm up here. She goes, guess one more time. And I'm like, listen, I already guessed between 18 and 21. Tell me your age or get off the slide. She goes, I'm 11.
Yep.
I said, get off my slide right now. Do not come back ever again. Leave me alone.
Wow.
Leave me alone. I was 17 and I was like, what the heck? Like, what the heck? Like, this is not supposed. I'm so glad it went nowhere beyond conversation. But I'm like, where's your parents? This was 25 years ago. I'm like, where's your parents? What are you doing by yourself in this giant water park, hitting on people that are like 6, 7 years older than you? I felt so dirty the rest of the day.
I bet.
I felt so dirty the rest of the day.
I
But
bet.
it was like, oh, it was so bad.
I had similar situations. I used to work at Blockbuster Video, which job was so fun.
Go back.
Yeah. Okay.
Work for Redbox.
Go back in time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Redbox, they're opening up their stores now. You hear about that?
No.
Yeah.
Are they-
Redbox is opening up stores, but it's going to be different. It's more like a cafe. Oh, no, Netflix or maybe it is Redbox. I don't know. It's going to be more like a cafe where you can like watch things on streaming. I know, it's weird. Anyway, when they announced that, Blockbuster like went on their Twitter and was like, yeah, we've seen how this ends. Like, their response was great. But I remember there was this one girl who came in, and it like she came in all the time, and we talked a little bit. No big deal. Nothing was like getting weird or romantic or anything like that. But it was just somebody like you'd have conversation with. And she came in, a few times. Sometimes she'd be there with her mom or her aunt or whatever, and I'd be there, and she'd come by herself, whatever. And at one point, I said, "Oh, what are you, a sophomore, or a junior?" And she's like, "She's 13," and I was like the mom or her aunt or whatever said that. I'm just like, okay. Like she was like mad at me for it. And I'm like, was just asking, like not a big deal. But it's just like you'd expect somebody to be older because of the way that they carry themselves. And we see people now, they're carrying themselves a lot older, like a lot bigger than they used to. But then again, maybe they didn't. Maybe we always carried ourselves that way. So in seeing these kids that are in college and seeing these kids in high school, I'm getting very confused because I'm like, I can't tell how old kids are anymore.
Nope.
It's weird because the way they carry themselves. And I go, oh man, I look at my kid's 8 years old, and I think about what I did at 8, and I'm like, my kid's sheltered, super sheltered compared to what I did at 8 years old. I used to go around, just ride my bike around town. My kid, I wouldn't even let her out of the yard. Like, I mean, I won't even like let her into the yard sometimes. We don't have fences. And it's crazy. But anyway, yeah. The point is,
I don't have any stories from my childhood that I can share publicly.
no, you don't.
I was very, very different from both of you. Very, very different.
Oh, I have stories I would never share publicly.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, I think we all do. I
I just find my story from Water Country. I was like, it was just, it never, if it had gone somewhere, I wouldn't tell anybody. Because
To your
would
whole
just be
to your
so bad.
whole thing before about the way
if
that
it had gone somewhere, you would have Dick Graysoned yourself. Just punch out a security guard and
Wow.
go to prison.
wow. To your whole point though about everything that Disney's doing, I agree with you to a certain point. But on the same hand, you already said it. You hit the nail on the head. The parents have to be the one that's going to turn this stuff off. It's not going to be a kid. A kid's not going to
No.
turn it
Right.
off. All right. When I was 8 and 9 years old, and I'm in my room at 11:30, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got MTV blasting, it should have been somebody else, like the adult, to come in and say, "No, you're not watching this at 1 o'clock in the morning. Turn this off. Go to sleep." Didn't happen
Right.
though. Not my fault.
No.
Not MTV's fault. It's the parents' fault. That's my
100%.
whole. That's okay. Good. That's my
So
that's my only
I
qualm.
thoroughly
I'm
agree.
not.
so we
And
I'm
had
not
this
gonna.
that's why
conversation.
when
I'm
that's
not
why when I
gonna
was with my
throw
daughter, I turned it off immediately.
that, which is fine. That's your prerogative. That's your right to do as a parent. The problem is that Disney going in that direction, not Disney's fault, because clearly it's making money, and they're doing
Not
what
Disney's fault.
and they're
Not
doing what
Disney's fault.
what every company does when they see a trend going in a particular direction. They capitalize on it. It's
But Disney is not.
capitalism. It is what it is. You can't blame Disney. You have to look at the parents and say it's your responsibility. It is not Disney's responsibility or MTV or HBO or any type of media company or any type of entertainment to police and monitor and parent your kids.
The only thing I will say to this, though, is I agree with that 100%. But the other thing that Disney is doing, though, is when they put out something that's not like that, it goes big. When they do stuff like that, like Lightyear, when they do stuff like Stranger Worlds, when they do stuff like these, every single one of those miniseries, every single one of those movies bomb every single time, and they haven't caught on. That's where they keep trying to push it, regardless of whether or not it's successful or not. And like Lightyear was, if it wasn't for that one 5-minute montage, would have been a fantastic film.
Well, do you remember the? It's not even just like the normal things like that, but the movie Eternals, and I'm not even talking about the relationship between the two men. Which, like, I remember being very confused about that. Like, who's that dude? Like, why is he there? Is he like an older brother? And then you see later on, you're like, oh, okay, they're in a relationship. Not what I expected. Now they're doing this. That was the beginning of it for me, seeing it in Disney. But it was more. Wasn't there like the little girl who was eternally a little girl who loved the other dude? And it was like she'll never have him because she's eternally a little girl. Like that alone made me feel kind of awkward because like a little girl who has this like lust for another dude, like this older guy. Like they've been pushing this whole like this is not the traditional type of relationship, and it just made it
The
feel
only
kind of
difference with
awkward.
that is it would feel awkward, but she might have the body of a little girl, but she has the mind of someone who's
And the
older.
I get that
age.
too, and that
And
was
the
and that's
age.
what they were getting at. I
Right.
get that, but still,
On screen, it looks
on
weird.
screen it looks weird.
Right.
And it was like regardless of what their point was and how old she technically was, it looked strange. And that's what they're trying to push is like, hey, things might look strange, but they're totally okay. Get over it. But I was thinking about my daughter's birthday. We had somebody who I shouted out a few weeks ago. And I remember the conversation we were having. Like his mother was there, he was there, and like his two little sisters were there celebrating my daughter's birthday. But he's a teenage kid, and he was complaining, like my mom doesn't let me watch these things. My mom doesn't give me like my mom monitors my internet usage, and I'm like, huh. I wish my parents monitored what I did when I was your age. And he's like, laugh about it, Will, but honestly, the stuff that I got into at his age, call it Rumspringa or whatever, me just going off and doing whatever. But I went in some pretty dark places. I did some pretty dark things at his age. And I wish I had somebody who paid attention to me enough that would care if I went down, an avenue that was not healthy for me. He's got a parent that loves him, that wants to protect him, not shelter him, but protect him and make sure that he's paying attention to the right things. I wish I had that. My parents didn't pay attention to me unless it was like, why didn't you do this? How come you got a bad grade? My stepdad was just like, why'd you get a B minus in math? And I'm like, if you only saw my real report card before I photoshopped it, you'd be really mad. But the reality was like, that's all I got was that you did something wrong. I'm going to yell at you for it. Not like, hey, here's the right way to go. I didn't get that. this kid is getting that from his mom, and he's just like, I just wish you would let me do what I wanted. I'm like, I did whatever I wanted because I knew how to sneak past everything. And I wish they paid attention to me enough to realize that I was sneaking past them. So, the grass is always greener. It's whatever. That's where I'm at with the whole thing. I know I'm getting deep here, and we're going beyond our feelings on glorious purpose. But
The atrocity that is
the
Loki.
atrocity that is Disney at this point.
Well, I'm good for the conversation if you guys are.
Oh yeah.
Anything from you, Will?
No, I'm
Final
done with
thoughts?
this. I'm done with Loki.
Cool.
Okay.
This is kind of a
Let me-
ceremonious occasion because this is the last Disney thing that we are going to be doing for a while.
Really?
Yes.
You don't want to watch the Marvels?
Not really.
What if it talks about? Okay, I don't think we're going to talk about the whole movie, but we might talk about what comes out of it. 'Cause I will see it at some point because I feel like if they are finally throwing some X-Men stuff in there, I'm going to want to see it.
See, now
And
you've
know what
said
all the
so
mean-
much
know-
about it that I'm gonna be disappointed no matter what happens.
I know. I just. Ugh.
So, with that being said, for those listening at this point still, thank you so much. Some places you can find us. You can find us at Patreon. The link will be in the comments on YouTube.
Description.
The description.
There
Sorry.
you go.
You can also find us on
He commented too. if you want.
Facebook at Black and White Reviews, as well as YouTube and Instagram at Black and White Reviews 1866.
Oh man, it should have been 1893,
Should have been,
right?
but it's 1866. So share our content, follow us, like us, please comment on it. We want to know what you guys think. And with that,
Will has a question. Hold on.
I don't.
Do you have a question? No.
I'm
Was there a
reading.
mistake? Oh, what are you reading? Let's hear it before we go too far.
What do you
Yeah,
think
what
I'm
do you-
reading?
the Marvels.
The Marvels?
Yeah.
Did you spoil it? for yourself?
Spoiler warning for the cameo in Marvels. Spoiler warning for the cameo in Marvels.
Oh no, it's Oh, hold on.
Stop. Chuck, if you do not want to hear about this, take off your headphones. Everybody else, this is the point of the podcast where you should turn it off. Spoiler warning for the cameo in Marvels.
I have a feeling I know who it is.
It's Beast.
Go ahead. Yes, obvious. They
Kelsey
blurred it out.
Grammer.
It's Kelsey Grammer, but I heard that it was CG.
That's a weird.
I heard that it was-
That's weird.
Yeah, I heard it was CG'd. It was a brief little thing that popped up, but
Of all the cameos, him for real?
Pharrell.
For real. Really? That's like a nah.
For Rizzle.
They did a cameo of Quicksilver already, and that went nowhere.
Yeah.
Boner.
The
And a
post-credit-
cameo
The post-credit
That
scene,
went
we see
nowhere.
Monica and she's alive and well. She awakes in a strange medical facility. Suddenly, she
mid-credit
comes
scene,
face to face with an alternate version of her late mother. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Inside, this, that, and everything else. Binary. The character's name is Binary, and she is a powerful alter ego of Carl Danvers while she teams with the X-Men.
Carl. Oh, Carl? What?
Carol.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, it's not non-binary. It's binary. Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow, 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 wow.
All right.
All right, guys. I am good. Thank you all for tuning in and have a fantastic evening.
Adios, amigos.
Bye-bye, everybody.